So this guy made a wrong turn today, going to see a client in St. Louis. This is my buddy Joe Kolb from Rhode Island, and somehow he ended up in Fishers, Indiana.
Yep.
So how did you manage to do that?
I took a left at a McDonald's and grabbed a little bite and then kept on the road and ended up here.
That was the big mistake, was eating McDonald's.
Exactly. Anything through the left window of the car is a bad thing.
Right. So Joe, I got a chance to meet Joe. Twitter, like always. We met at Stocktoberfest East.
Yep.
And then we just stayed in communication, and so kind of him to come drive 3 hours out of his way from St. Louis to see a client to come chat with me. So we've been hanging out all day, and we were talking about a Michael Kitz's piece that came out about the future of RIAs. So we both own our own RIA, and
Yep.
Michael Kitz's had a paper he wrote about the success of RIAs going forward, and his finding, basically to summarize it, was large RIAs should be in good shape for obvious reasons. They're real big. Small RIAs have a good shot as well because they're nimble and they're smaller and they have niches, but it was the mid-size RIA firm that was going to be in trouble. So we were talking about this. Michael Batnick and Josh Brown on their video talked about this as well, and we're both huge fans of both of those guys. And Josh had the belief that small advisors, small RIAs would have some trouble as well. Not that we took offense to that, but we were talking about it, and
Right.
One of the few times that I will vocally say that I disagree with Josh. I think small firms are going to do well, and that's what Joe and I were going to talk about today. So I will let Joe share with everybody why he thinks the small RIA firm is going to be okay.
Right, so first off, big firms, we know big firms are big firms. They can do whatever they need to do. They have the scale to do so. Smaller advisors, I bet if you went back 15 years ago, couldn't do what we can do now. But nowadays we have the great equalizer in technology, and that there's literally nothing that a little advisor can't do that a bigger firm or a million or billion-dollar firm can do. We were talking about it earlier. It's like you look at the software stack of like a billion-dollar firm. You go to their website and you can see they're using specific portfolio software and everything. All of those things are now available to smaller advisors, and they can do those in a really cost-efficient way. Yeah, I actually think the nimbleness and the ability to use a great tech stack and affordability, like you belong to the XY Planning Network, that alone has given young advisors and small advisors a leap forward. Yeah, I think the young, nimble, small advisors and RIA firms are going to kick ass, frankly.
Yeah, and obviously I think so too, and I hope so, because that's where I'm at. What I think about it all
You
this
are
is,
kicking ass.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. What I think about it is there going to be a point where, all right, now I start to creep to that mid-size level, and do I pull back the reins because I don't want to venture into that? And I think the premise behind that is when you're small and nimble, you know, my vision is me, another advisor, a full-time assistant. You know, that should be kind of where I want to stop. If you go to that next level, now you start hiring, and when they talk about margins and profitability, that's where that comes down. So I see where that comes in. I don't know if part of me is scared to think about having to shut it down, so I don't get into that area that's too big but not quite big enough.
Right. Instead of, as Michael Kitces always says, you're working on the business, not in the business.
Right.
Right. You get to the point where no longer you're getting that client interaction. So I can only imagine that all of the people listening as planners, the interaction with clients is literally what you live for. The ability to meet people, connect with them, and help them get where they want to go. Advisors.
Not salespeople.
Not salespeople,
Right.
No sales. No sales. It's that connection that means something. And then if you decide to scale up to where you're $1 billion or $2 billion, you are now a business owner. You're running the business. You're running day-to-day operations. You're not getting that connection. I don't know that would ever be for me.
Right.
I think smaller is a better way to go when it comes to that.
And I think that smaller also affords the ability to have that balance that millennials, you might not be a millennial, but
I might not
you
be
want
a
that
millennial.
balance. I think that smaller allows for that balance as well. Meaning, like for me, it's real important to be able to be at home with the family, spend time with the boys, incorporate the boys in some of the stuff I do. I don't want to give that up, and if I have a huge team, you know, one, I'm not going to have the time to be able to do that, and then there's kind of the resentment of, well, he gets to go do whatever he wants to do, but I've got to be here, and I just think that that's tough. I'm with you. I think that the small and nimble is where I want to stay. To your point, technology allows us to do a lot of what the big guys are doing, and it also allows us, I think, to be easier to make changes as technology improves, because we have our clients, but we don't have 20 advisors that we have to get up and rolling on a new technology. If something better comes along, you know, transition would be easier when you're smaller. And most of the time, clients are cool with technology changes if it makes it better for them.
Right. To that point, not to get off track, it's funny is that I do think that small advisors and younger advisors need to embrace technology, but I think that I want to see people stop chasing it, because I find myself doing that, and that I have this stack that works phenomenally well for my clients, but you're constantly inundated with, well, you need to be doing this and doing this and doing that, and sometimes you just need to say, it's not necessary, just relax and you got what you need. And so I'm slowly getting to that point. It's interesting about the small RIAs, though. It's that it is literally a time when advisors can have it all. Like, you can literally go to soccer practice, do the things you need to do with your kids, and you can still take care of all of your clients. I don't know that that can be accomplished in a mid-sized firm, and I don't even know if it can be accomplished in a large-sized firm.
Right.
So,
when I think that the argument for the large size is just revenue. There's enough revenue there to run the business, and I think that the goals might be different between the large firm and the smaller firm. The big thing that people talk about a lot that I want to ask you about is, what about like the compliance aspect? That's the thing that the argument that expenses to run the business go up. I'd argue that technology is driving a lot of that expense down. Like, I would be more than happy if anybody out there wants to talk about it, to share what my expenses are to run the business. It's pretty light. I mean, you can see my office here. It's an office suite. I don't have a lot of rent. Technology is not too bad. Compliance is a big thing. I think as more employees become a part of my picture, that becomes a little bit more complicated. But do you think the expense of compliance is that great for a smaller firm, being that there's less people to manage? I think that the compliance costs go up significantly when you have more people. You have more social media to follow, more emails to check, more trades to worry about. But if it's just a handful of people, I don't know how much that compliance expense really is going to be.
I think it's more than just a cost. It's also a cost on yourself, because one, it costs you more to take care of more people, but now it's no longer, I'm responsible for myself. I know I didn't do this wrong. Now when you have an extra person, you literally have to monitor what they're doing, check what they're doing, make sure they're not doing something wrong. Something we would joke about that, like, Wells Fargo's of the world doesn't do, right? They don't follow up and check on these people. It's a leap when you start adding people. I do think compliance costs go up, but also a little bit of a stress in your life goes up with having to watch someone else. So,
to everybody out there at a small RIA, if you own it yourself, the big takeaway that if you haven't read the Kitz's report, you read it. I'll make sure I link to it. But it showed that the revenue, the take-home revenue, the take-home pay for a small RIA was equivalent to that of the larger companies. Because things are pretty reasonable as far as way of cost of doing business. Again, it goes back to the middle, where that's where the big gap was. So Kitz has said you don't want to be in the mid, small and large, you got a good shot. Our friends at Ritholtz said, well, maybe it's just the large guys. I think, and maybe I'm foolish, I think that small is going to be able to do it. I'm stubborn enough to think I'm going to make it. So go, if you're a small RIA, go read that report. It was good. I think take to what Joe talked about is embracing the technology and leveraging it in there, but also don't spend so much time chasing it. You know, if you're taking real good care of your clients, they're not going to leave you. If you have good tech, stick with it. You got anything else?
No, I just, it's interesting, as I would say one advice to you for younger, smaller advisors that are getting going. And I think that the last 10 years we've looked at the markets just being amazing. All right. I hope that everybody out there that's starting their practice, when they're actually starting to look at their revenues and calculate them, actually takes a little piece of that off the table, doesn't count it, doesn't spend it, almost as if we're coaching our clients, like, hey, you got this big boosted income, you know, put a little bit of that aside. I think advisors need to do that as well, because it's not always going to be, you know, 2009 to 2018. You all need to prepare for that.
So that could bring up another conversation for us in the future. Maybe I'll come out to Rhode Island, we can do it.
There you go.
That I forget who it was. I saw somebody talk about how advisors are, we tell our clients to diversify, but we are heavily correlated to the market. One, our businesses and most of our revenue is tied to it, but then also our personal investments and our retirement is in that as well. That advisors should look to other areas to diversify their income. So that may be a conversation for another day.
Absolutely.
You've been on the road for a while. You're going to head back tonight, but we're going to go grab some dinner. So you know what? I would love to do this with more advisors. If you're an advisor and you find yourself passing through Indy or close by, hit me up and we'll find something to chat about. It gets lonely doing my whiteboard videos by myself. I bring the boys in, but they don't really contribute. So I would love to do more of this, talking with other advisors, put it out there to share with advisors. And if you're not an advisor, you're a client, I think it's kind of also kind of cool to see what we talk about. And yes, we're worrying about your plans, but we're also worrying about making sure our businesses do well so we can stay in business to help you. So Joe, I appreciate you driving all the way up here.
It was a blast. It was well worth the time.
Thanks for doing the video too.
Absolutely.
You're a natural. You need to do it more often.
All right.
So everybody, thanks for watching. I'll link to the Kitsis article below. Check that out, and then hopefully I get another advisor to come through here sometime and we can do it again. Joe, let's go get something to eat.
Let's go eat.
Dude, you did awesome. What are you worried about?
You all right?
You are a natural.